It's about the I gotta say, it's the stupidest thing in sports.
Being able to run as he shoots the moon to the fans here in Green Bay.
That is a disgusting act by Randy Moss.
This is not Detroit, man. This is the Super Bowl.
He looks fat.
Santa Maria!
Here we go. From the touchdown.
This is BS Sports.
And welcome in on a Tuesday evening. It's actually nice out again. You know, I gotta say, as much as I wasn't a fan of losing an hour of sleep a couple of Sundays ago, I'm glad I can have the blinds open during the show. Have some natural light as opposed to just complete darkness every time we have to do the show. But we're back. another insane week in the NFL offseason. Apparently, everybody was just like, you know what? Let's just throw away all the rules. We're just going to do everything crazy. This has been one of the crazier NFL off seasons I can remember. So we're going to break down all the major moves. I actually made notes. You should be very proud of me. I made notes. I sectioned them off by position groups, quarterback, wideouts, defense, and then as well as just looking specifically at the Lions moves, because that's obviously what we do around here. We just got to talk March Madness. The tournament has been officially announced. All 68 teams. A couple of teams are playing right now in the play-in, if anybody cares to watch that. As well as a couple of little baseball stuff. You know, the Tigers are playing today in spring training. There was a couple of big baseball news. So I'll briefly have to talk about that. But we're going to start off first things first with the NFL offseason news. I'm going to start with the Lions stuff just because it is pertinent to me. And I'm a very selfish person, naturally. So we got to start with the first big news of that I noted here. Brad Campbell. Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell extended through 2027. So this is sort of unforeseen territory. Lions GM and coach agree to another couple seasons to their contract. Let's see if I actually get the specific. I think it was 2 more years because it's all the way through the 2027 season. So, I mean, not a whole lot of commentary on that other than, I mean, they've been doing a fantastic job to this point. They deserve the extension. You take the team in year 3 to the NFC Championship game and you're 30 minutes out from a trip to the Super Bowl, which no one has ever done. Yeah, I mean, you deserve the extension, and hopefully this extension doesn't age poorly. And hopefully we see more and more years of success from Brad Holmes, and specifically from Dan Campbell. Both of them have done great jobs in their role. But further, as far as actual moves, so this was relatively early in the week, but we didn't get to talk about it. The Lions signed DJ Reader to a 2-year deal. So I'm gonna be a little contrarian for just a pinch, because people love this deal. And I like the deal. I think DJ Reader's a really good player. One problem is he's coming off some injuries. I believe he's injured both of his quads in the past couple of seasons. So hopefully he is, healthy and not, gonna. I mean, he doesn't have any more quads to lose. But hopefully we're dealing with DJ Reader at his peak, at as much as we could get out of DJ Reader. So let me pull up his stats here really quick, because he's 29 years old. He'll be 30. I mean, usually he'll be 30 by the end of the year. I don't know when he'll turn 30 though. Let me see if I can find his Football Reference page. Here we go. So last season, he did not. Excuse me. Wait. I felt it coming, and I was like, it's got to either come out at some point, or I don't know how we're going to deal with it. But anyway, so last year, he played 14 games, so obviously he missed a few games there. Didn't really actually, it just did, he wasn't, amazing. He had just a couple of TFLs. He had a lot of QB hits, but he was a run stuffer. That was his deal. A lot of combined tackles. He had 34 combined tackles. Hasn't played a full season, though, since 2018. So, again, the health is a little bit of a concern. But even still, I mean, frankly, if you can get 14 games out of him next year, I don't think anybody's going to be complaining. I mean, think of the guys we already had on the field. Like Aleem McNeil last year, who was our nose tackle. He didn't play a full season. He had a couple of games where he missed. I'm thinking of other guys that we've signed where they missed time. CJ Gardner-Johnson, namely. He missed a lot of time. But he's not a huge sack guy. And that's the thing that is, I guess, holding him back in a sense. I don't know if that's really the right word. So, again, he's a run stuffer. He sits there in the middle of your defensive line. He's going to bring pressure. He's going to, stop you from running the football, which the Lions did incredibly well last year. So you strengthen a strength, and I'm okay with that. I'm fine with, boosting something that you were already good at. You're already good at stopping the run. Let's make it even better. And DJ Reader is absolutely going to do that. Again, the only concern I have is the slight is the injury thing, the 2 quad injuries in the past couple of seasons. Not a huge fan of that. But hopefully it is a concern that is alleviated rather quickly. Up next, the Lions also re-signed Donovan Peoples-Jones. So Donovan Peoples-Jones, the one trade acquisition the Lions made last year at the deadline, trading him from the Cleveland Browns. They decided to bring him back. I was a little surprised because he really didn't do a whole lot for us. He made a couple of nice catches, and then I believe in the playoffs he was returning punts. I don't even know how many punts he had to return because obviously he was only doing that because Khalif Raymond went down. But I guess the Lions really he's a local guy, went to U of M, Cass Tech High School as well. He's from the area. He wanted to play for Detroit. So, hey, if he wants to be along for the ride, he's certainly a good player. Like, he certainly has that capability of having an effect. But obviously with the Lions offense the way it is, he really couldn't find that much of a spot because it was like, oh, there's Amon-Ra, there's Josh Reynolds, yeah, even there's JMO. But that's fine. I mean, it's depth. It's only a 1-year deal, and hey, if he can find a spot in special teams or in gadget plays, something like, he's a veteran of the league. It's really not gonna hurt you to have him on your team. So, nice move there. And then the big move that happened yesterday evening, Lions bring in, if it wants to load for me, one Kevin Zeitler, offensive guard from the Ravens on a 1-year deal, which was just signed today. The announcement was yesterday, but it was just signed today. So that basically secures the offensive line. And I was actually listening to sports radio today at work. Don't tell my employers. I don't know why they wouldn't have a problem. But the point that was being made was that the Lions right now, with the moves that they've made, if you look at the totality, if you look at, Amik Robertson, Marcus Davenport, then you add Kevin Zeitler, Carlton Davis, and DJ Reader. You add it all together, you're like, we have basically addressed a lot of the issues, right? Like secondary, you bring back Mosley, you bring back you bring in Carlton Davis, you bring in Amik Robertson. And then on the other end of it, defensive line, you bring in Marcus Davenport, you bring in DJ Reader. And so now you're dealing with a spot where, and then you secure the offensive line. You bring back Glenn Glasgow. You bring in Kevin Zeitler, who is a Pro Bowl caliber guard. You're in a spot right now where there's not a immediate need where I'm like, you got to draft this guy. You got to draft this position in the draft. Like, I really can't think of it. Like, the only thing I would say is maybe you could still secure your defensive line. Maybe you can add an edge rusher if that's available at 29, or if you want to trade up or trade down, whatever you want to do. But it gives Brad Holmes a lot more leeway, which I think is where he works his best, because it's funny. A lot of the time when fans or commentators or whoever, they think, oh, the Lions need to do this, and then he does basically the opposite. And it ends up working out. I mean, just this past year, you use your first round draft picks on a running back in Jahmyr Gibbs and a off-ball linebacker in Jack Campbell, and both those guys turned out to be pretty good players. So this gives him a lot more room, and we know that he can draft high, he can draft low, and so this is where he's at his best. And I mentioned it last week that with where the Lions are at, the offseason, you can't just sit and say, oh my gosh, why didn't we do this in free agency? It's like the offseason is more than just free agency and trades. The draft is the bread and butter. The draft is where you will live and die. If you can't draft, it doesn't matter if you can sign and make some decent trades, because that's where you're going to get most of your players. You get, how many players you usually get in the draft, right? Like, you go 7 rounds, I don't know, you get at least roughly somewhere around 7-ish players, which is almost an entire side of the field, right? On top of the players that you already have and all that. So they have the ability now to just go into the draft and have a little fun. I mean, honestly, it's BPA, best player available. If the best player available is a corner, take him. Best player available is a wide receiver, take him. Best player available is an offensive lineman, take it. Outside of drafting a quarterback or a running back, do whatever you want. And I think that's the best position to be in. it alleviates a little bit of the pressure, and it allows for Brad Holmes to just kind of cook, as the kids say. Just let the man cook, and hopefully it ends up in not a whole lot of controversy. But we know that Brad Holmes likes to go against the grain, especially in the draft. So we'll see about it, but he usually ends up right in the end, and that's why he got that extension. But moving along to the rest of free agency. So I guess I'll start with the quarterbacks. This was like the weirdest of just series of events surrounding quarterbacks. Like, I couldn't have found a list of more ugly quarterbacks that nobody in their right mind would really want, but they were all on the move and being acquired by teams. Like, not like picked up. It's like we're gonna actually make moves for it. So first things first, Desmond Ridder traded to the Cardinals for Rondale Moore. I don't really. I guess they figure Desmond Ridder is a decent backup to Kyler Murray. Okay. And on the Falcons side, they pick up Rondale Moore, who is okay. He's another weapon. We'll say that, right? Like, he's young. He put up 100 or so yards in a season. Last year he had 40 receptions for 350 yards. I mean, he's not like, he's not Jerry Rice, but he can get you out of a pinch, I suppose. And maybe, he'll be entering into a pretty good situation, I guess, in Atlanta with a lot of weapons. There won't be a whole lot of pressure on him. He could probably put up the same sorts of numbers that he's been putting up with Arizona. Won't have to start, just be a role player. And it wasn't like Atlanta had much to do with Desmond Ridder now that they got Big Kirko. So I suppose it's a good move for Atlanta. Low risk, high reward as far as what it is for Arizona. I hope that Kyler Murray doesn't get hurt, because you don't want Desmond Ridder as your starting quarterback. You can look at last year as to why Desmond Ridder is not that guy. He's really not good at the game of football for unfortunate reasons. And speaking of not being very good at football, the Seahawks also make a move. They trade for Sam Howell. So I guess Sam Howell and Geno Smith going to be competing for the starting role over in Seattle. Yeah, sure. Why not? I mean, this was another move where I was just like, I don't really know why anybody would want him. I don't know why Washington would move on from him, in the sense of okay, obviously Washington is thinking about drafting a quarterback here. Now, my thinking is, and I don't know who their backup would be, assuming they draft a quarterback. They could have signed somebody. I actually don't know. But I guess Sam Howell, he could put up some yards. He was not good, but I figure, you're getting a new coach, new scheme. There's weapons on that Washington team that, assuming your rookie quarterback doesn't just come out the gates, guns blazing, you might be able to make something of it. But I guess they don't really feel that strongly about him, and maybe Seattle sees something in him. And the thing about it is, the last time Seattle traded for some, crummy, Sam Howell wasn't a first round pick. Some crummy quarterback on a team that didn't really look good, and seems like they're a quarterback away. Last time that happened, bad things happened. We'll just say that. If Sam Howell comes out of nowhere next year and is comeback player of the year, don't say I didn't warn you. Now, this won't happen. There's just no way. I mean, you don't have Pete Carroll anymore. New coach, Mike McDonald. We'll see if that works out. More of a defensive guy anyway, so not sure if he's a quarterback whisperer exactly, but I don't know. Maybe he gets a good staff. But it looks like the compensation is they sent Sam Howell a 4th round pick and a 6th round pick, so they gave some picks away as well. Seattle gets that's what Seattle gets. I mean, and Washington gets a 3rd round pick and a 5th round pick. So I guess you can sleep well with that if you're Washington. You get a third round pick that's borderline a starter level player these days. So you pick that up and maybe you can run with it and see if you got anything. Maybe you can make something out of it. You're probably not going to be starting Sam Howell anyway. But again, like I said, barring bad circumstances, I don't know what their backup situation is. And Sam Howell to this point has at least been a quarterback for what would be 3 years entering next season. So I don't know. But I wouldn't be surprised if all of a sudden Sam Howell just goes off because he's got the arm. And, he was a pretty good quarterback for North Carolina for at least a season. So maybe he's got some potential and Mike McDonald might be able to see if he can extract that, but I don't know. Not too confident in it. And now we get really weird, all right? Before, it was just kind of it's kind of interesting because, these guys were starters. They're moving on, former high draft picks, guys that were pretty good in college. Now we're getting weird, okay? The Philadelphia Eagles trade for Kenny Pickett among the whole – so last time we discussed Russell Wilson signed with the Pittsburgh Steelers, and you're like, oh my gosh, they've got a quarterback room of Kenny Pickett and Russell Wilson. What is this? What is happening? What are we doing? And then Pittsburgh is like, no more to Kenny Pickett. They send him away to the dungeon, otherwise known as Philadelphia. And the Eagles also get a 4th round pick with Kenny Pickett. And the Steelers get a 3rd round pick and 2 2025 2nd round picks. So they actually get some decent return on him. Now, the problem, of course, is that they used a 1st round pick on Kenny Pickett, and they only really gave him a couple of seasons. That was my confusion, at least, was that I was like, well, I kind of thought they liked this guy. He's from Pennsylvania. He went to University of Pitt. He was a pretty good quarterback. He was one of the higher graded quarterbacks in a weak quarterback class that season. And I guess they just weren't that high on him because they said, you're done. I'm out with you. And I don't know if there was some drama going on. Kenny Pickett's people apparently were saying that they didn't like the idea of the QB competition, and that they were even saying that the Steelers organization was saying, no, you're not the starter. Russell Wilson is going to be the starter now, which is mind-boggling to me because I don't think Kenny Pickett's amazing, but Kenny Pickett surely has better upside than Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson, we saw just how bad he has been in the past couple of seasons with Denver. I don't think he's going to be back to where he was, at this point, nearly a decade ago with Seattle. So to just give up on a quarterback like that, and, for Philly, I guess now you have a pretty competent backup to Jalen Hurts, a guy who, it's funny, there's actually a picture of Kenny Pickett in an Eagles jersey. So I guess he grew up an Eagles fan, which is interesting because he went to Pitt, and, Pittsburgh and Philly are rival cities, kind of, at least in hockey they are. But either way, I'm just shocked by a 1st round quarterback going just like that. However, there was another 1st round quarterback that went to the Steelers, and his name is one Justin Fields. Now, I gotta say, I hate to say I told you so. I hate to be the guy who just rubs it in and makes people feel bad when I'm right and they're wrong. But Justin Fields is terrible. Everybody thinks Justin Fields is terrible. The NFL thinks Justin Fields is terrible. The only people that I can discern that think that Justin Fields is a good quarterback are fantasy football players and Chicago Bears fans. Those are the only 2 people. And I guess weird, stat nerds who look at box scores and don't actually watch football games, because every single time I've watched Justin Fields play football, it has been terrible. It has been awful throws. It has been sacks, interceptions, fumbles, nonsense, blowing games. I watched him blow a game to the Lions that he had dead to rights, but because of his own foolishness and bad play, Lions end up stealing the game. And I don't know why everybody suddenly, it was starting from last year. It's all of a sudden people are like, oh, Justin Fields, maybe he's their guy. He's going to lead the Bears. They're going to be the best team in that division. Don't sleep on the Bears. And I was like, no, actually, they're terrible. They are very not good. And he specifically is part of the reason they're very not good. So anyway, Justin Fields is traded to the Steelers for 2025 draft pick. So that is the return, by the way. The Chicago, from the Pittsburgh Steelers Twitter account, acquired Justin Fields from the Chicago Bears in exchange for a 2025 conditional 6th round pick. So it's a conditional 5th or 6th round pick. Like, that is what the NFL thinks of him. Like that, and it's like it's like shocking to people. And I'm like, what is so shocking? He can't throw. He's terrible in the fourth quarter. Blown more leads than like I don't even like Kyle Shanahan could imagine. He's like the quarterback embodiment of the Kyle Shanahan blown lead. And he takes more sacks and turns the ball over more than any quarterback in the league. I want to say in the past 2 seasons, I saw some stat that he was sacked. Him and Russell Wilson, ironically, were sacked the most the last 2 seasons. Like, for a guy who's supposedly mobile, and look, he is mobile. Like, he can run and he can take off. He gets sacked more than the immobile guys, like, which is its own sort of interesting circumstance. But I never thought Justin Fields was good. Even like his rookie year, it's like, okay, yeah, I mean, maybe and then like there was just this weird fantasy. Like, he got an MVP vote. I just want people to think about this. A player who was taken in the first round, who was traded for a 2025 conditional 6th round pick, got an MVP vote. An MVP vote. Like, that is, it blows my mind. It blows my mind. But that's just what it is. The media is a powerful tool, and Justin Fields is now a Pittsburgh Steeler. So, and the other thing I wanted to talk about with this, I got to say, I have no idea what the heck the Steelers are doing. Like, I have no clue what their plan is. So they're bringing in all these quarterbacks that nobody likes. They're bringing in Russell Wilson. They're bringing in Justin Fields. They're trading away their hometown kid quarterback in Kenny Pickett, who, as far as I was concerned, has more upside than either of these quarterbacks. And instead, they're getting rid of wide receiver. Like, I don't. What is the plan? Like, they have a new offensive coordinator in Arthur Smith. They get rid of Matt Canada, who was terrible, and now they're sitting with the two, maybe the worst quarterback room outside of, like, I don't know, maybe whatever. I guess we'll see at the end of the draft what situation looks worse. But I don't know that Russell Wilson will have much success here. And you already traded Deontay Johnson, who was one of their better receivers, like I said. They're really trying to start over in a sense, but I don't know. I don't get it. I don't get it whatsoever. It doesn't make much sense to me. Whatever they're doing, it's either going to completely blow up in their face, and this is going to be finally going to be the year where Mike Tomlin does not have a winning record or a 500 record, or they just sneak into the playoffs and lose like they do every year. There's pretty much going to be no in between. I don't think they're going to be contenders with this quarterback room. I guess we could wait and see what they do in the draft, but I mean, the idea of them being aggressive in the draft is laughable to me. Like, I don't think the Steelers deal in aggressiveness in the draft, but I don't know. Stranger things have happened, and apparently trading for Justin Fields, I didn't have that on my resume. My bingo card going into the season. That's for sure. But moving along then to the wideouts. As, by the way, the Red Wings are losing 2-0 to the worst team in the Eastern Conference, and I'm beyond myself right now. Both of them on breakaway goals, so that's good. Good job, Wings. You're blowing another playoff chance that you have, so that's fantastic. Anyways, on to the wideouts. Mike Williams, the Chargers actually did some stuff, but it was not great. Mike Williams was cut by the Chargers, and then today signed by the Jets. So Mike Williams, the injured wide receiver for the Chargers, really good when he's healthy, but doesn't stay healthy. Now, the thing about it is, the Jets signing Mike Williams, to me, is the most Jets thing in the world. You're bringing in a wide receiver who has proven year and year that he can't stay healthy. He can't stay on the football field. And you're putting him with a quarterback who is entering his 40s, who just tore his Achilles, with a terrible offensive line, and also a running back in Breece Hall, who also just a couple of years ago, people forget, he was out the whole season. Like, and you're also attaching him with, like, Alan Lazard, who's like 1,000 years old. I don't know what the Jets think. Like, I guess, like, in their mind, with Mike Williams, it's high risk, high reward. Like, you get a really solid receiver. I mean, you still got Garrett Wilson. He's probably their best player, to be honest. I wouldn't be surprised if the Jets completely fall apart again this year, and then they end up trading Garrett Wilson. That would be the right move to make, but because of the Jets, I am doubtful that it will happen. So, yeah, they bring in Mike Williams. I don't know. The Jets confuse me. And speaking of other confusing moves, Calvin Ridley signs with the Titans. So I made, obviously, the video talking about where I thought Calvin Ridley could end up. And I realize now, like, on all my thumbnails, I'm like 0 on like all of them. Like as far as, like, I usually do 3 teams that I think that I talk about in the clip. And I'm 0 on basically all of them. Like, I didn't get the Saquon one. Calvin Ridley one was wrong. So Calvin Ridley ends up going to the Titans. And Ian Rappaport puts it very bluntly, a stunner. A 4-year, $92 million deal of $50 million guaranteed. I mean, it's a good contract for him, but I don't really know how this will work out for the Titans. I mean, I guess it's not a terrible move. Obviously, the Titans kind of entering a weird retooling stage. They lose Derrick Henry. They bring in Tony Pollard. They got, the Mayo man at quarterback in what's his name, Will Levis. And, he showed some flashes. He might be a good replacement to Tannehill for the Titans. And you give him a nice weapon in Calvin Ridley. But the problem with Calvin Ridley is availability. He's either getting hurt or he's getting suspended. Now, the suspension thing is its own deal. It's not like he's not like a bad person. He just doesn't – seems like he just never really has those big seasons. Like, I thought maybe with the Jags he'd be able to put it together, and just didn't work out completely. Like, a total failure from the Jacksonville organizational standpoint. Like, they gotta, that's gotta be a mark against them. But even, like, looking at his numbers, okay, like, Calvin Ridley, to me, he feels like the biggest tease in NFL. Like, he finished 2nd or 7th in comeback player of the year last year, but, like, he's only caught for 1,000 yards twice in his career. He's been in the league since 2018. He's going to be entering his 30s going into Tennessee. And wide receivers, if they're not really good, when they enter their 30s, things tend to not be great. He's only caught for double-digit touchdowns once in his career. He's never been a Pro Bowler. I guess he was an All-Pro. He was second-team All-Pro. But that was back in 2020. He has not – I mean, he played a full season last year, and it was like, it's like decent numbers, but not like blow-you-away numbers. Certainly not like 4-year, $50 million guaranteed numbers. And maybe it's just the cost of doing business. Maybe it's just what it is. But I mean, like, he'd basically be like a 60 yards a game kind of receiver. Like, it's sort of a middle of the road, second or third option. Now, he's probably going to be the number 1 or number 2 option in Tennessee, depending on the status of DeAndre Hopkins. But I can't imagine DeAndre Hopkins is going to be going for that much longer. If this is your number 1 option, that doesn't bode well. That does not sit well with me, at least. So good luck, I guess, Calvin. I didn't expect you to go to the Titans, but okay, that's how it goes. And speaking of players I didn't expect to go certain places, Keenan Allen traded to the Bears. Chargers get a 4th-round pick for Keenan Allen. This is another bit of a surprise. I mean, like, Chargers, that's 2 really solid wide receiver weapons they move on from. But needless to say, I mean, Keenan Allen, he's still one of the top wide receivers in the league. I mean, like, when the Chargers played the Lions last year, I mean, you would have thought he was the only receiver on the Chargers because he made, like, all the touchdowns and all the catches for Keenan Allen. So the Bears, they get a really nice weapon for presumably the quarterback that they take number 1 overall. So whether it's Caleb Williams or Drake May or JJ McCarthy or Michael Penix or whoever they want to take, he's gonna have a really solid room. And Keenan Allen, DJ Moore, like if they pick up a running back, or they just picked up DeAndre Swift, who, I mean, I have a little bit of history with DeAndre Swift. I don't think he's gonna do that much for you, but either way, I think it's a really solid pickup for them. And for the Chargers, I guess like you got what you could have gotten, but I don't know. Like I want to feel good about the Chargers going into next year, and maybe I'll feel better going into the draft or post draft, I should say. And they still got a myriad of weapons. I think they still have, no, they don't have Austin Eckler. They don't have Mike Williams. They have Quentin Johnston, who was not great. Maybe it's not going to be so great with the Chargers this year. I wish Seth was here. He might be able to help out here. But they do. I'll say this: the Chargers do bring back some defensive guys. We'll get into that in just a second. But yeah, so Keenan Allen off to the Bears, and the Bears, maybe they're building something. I don't trust their coach, and I don't even know what they're going to be doing at quarterback. I'll wait until the draft. I'm assuming they're going to take Caleb Williams, but I don't know. Caleb Williams isn't playing any NFL games. So, finally, probably in a weird way, the best move any team made of the week, outside of maybe the Lions bringing in DJ Reader. The Chiefs signed Marquise Hollywood Brown, to a 1-year deal. So congratulations, Chiefs. You just got your best wide receiver. No, that's not true. So they add to their wide receiver room, which was obviously lacking. And they do it with a kind of middle of the road, not great, but not like awful wide receiver. At least that's his perception. Let me see if I can pull him up. It's like QI, Marquise Brown. There we go. So like, I'm not blowing you away. Oh, hi, Tim. Dropping off the keys. All right. Have a good night. All right, moving on. Anyways, sorry. Friend just had to drop some stuff off. But, so, with Marquise Brown, it's like, I feel like his name is just like carrying him. Like, he sounds like he should be a good wide receiver. Hollywood Brown, Marquise Hollywood Brown. But he's only caught for 1,000 yards once in his career. He's never had double-digit touchdown numbers. He's basically 50 yards per game kind of guy. However, that probably puts him at about the same pace as most of the receivers the Chiefs were putting out there. I mean, he's probably better than Kadarius Toney. I mean, right? Like, but I don't like comparing it. Like, I feel like MVS has got to be better. Rashee Rice certainly was better. Rashee Rice was probably their best wide receiver. But I don't know. I mean, like, I think it's a good move because it just adds some depth to that room. And, Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid, maybe they can figure something out with him. And he's still, entering his prime. He's going to be 27 next year. Like he could have some room to grow there. I mean, not like exponentially, but I could see him having another 1,000-yard season. It's not totally out of the realm of possibility, especially if Patrick Mahomes is throwing the ball to a bunch of different guys. It's not completely baseless, I guess. But overall, it's not like an amazing move. And again, like I said, it's probably the best move outside of the DJ Reader signing. Like, I guess, like. But anyway, moving on to the defense. So this is where the Chargers actually make some good moves. Believe it or not, they are allowed to do that. They bring back both Joey Bosa and Khalil Mack, both who are obviously very, very good defensive players. Joey Bosa, obviously the brother of Nick Bosa, and Khalil Mack, an absolute stud, 8-time Pro Bowler. He had 17 sacks last year. That is phenomenal. Now, the only thing about Joey Bosa, though, is the kid doesn't stay healthy. And I say the kid, he's kind of an old man at this point. Pull up Joey Bosa's numbers real quick here. he's going to be entering his 29-year-old season. He hasn't been a Pro Bowler in a couple of seasons. And, we're long removed from when he was Defensive Rookie of the Year. But he's still an effective player. I mean, he still had 6 TFLs last year. He still had 6.5 sacks, right? He's still a good player. And that was in 9 games, by the way. So, in 9 games, he was getting 6.5 sacks. That's pretty good, okay? That's pretty good. If he can stay healthy, which unfortunately he hasn't been able to do since his last Pro Bowl season in 21, but you're unhealthy until you're healthy kind of deal, right? So if he can have another stretch that he had from 2019 to 2021 where he was just, without a doubt, one of the best defenders in the game, that Chargers defense can be scary. And again, same deal with Khalil Mack, who he's another guy who didn't have a problem staying healthy. He was a world beater last year. And he finished 9th in Defensive Player of the Year last year. And he's been a Pro Bowler every single year except for 2021. But every year he's been with the Chargers, he's been a Pro Bowler. And I really thought when they brought in Khalil Mack, that defense would be unstoppable. I mean, Brandon Staley will do that. But, I guess for me, he's obviously past his prime. He's going to be entering his mid-30s. They bring him back. He's probably not going to be the all-pro Defensive Player of the Year guy that Oakland had back in the day and that Chicago had a couple of years back. But he's still going to get a really solid player out of Khalil Mack. And it's a good thing for the Chargers to bring those guys back because at least, in my mind, they're actually bringing back talented players. That is something that I wanted to see for Seth's sake because I don't think Seth can take another really, really bad losing season for his Chargers. But speaking of losing seasons and things, the Jaguars bring in Eric Armstead, 3 years, $51 million after the 49ers had to get rid of him. This was a little surprising, but I think a good move for the Jaguars. Eric Armstead, really solid player overall. He only had the 5 sacks last year, but, he played 12 games, 27 tackles. I mean, he was a solid part of that defense. Now, as far as how well he's going to do when, he's not surrounded by other great defenders, I don't know. It might not go well. But, I would have liked if the Lions would have gone after Armstead, but, they ended up going for DJ Reader, which I was not. Like I said, I mean, I've gone back and forth on it. I'm not gonna take too much longer on that. But Jags bring in Eric Armstead. I don't really know where the Jags are, and frankly, I don't believe in their quarterback, to be perfectly honest. And they're losing talent with Calvin Ridley. They bring in Gabe Davis, so that was a good move. I like that move. But yeah, I guess we'll see what happens with Eric Armstead if he's truly their guy. If he's truly a difference maker on defense. That was the word I was looking for. So moving along to the second to last move on the defensive side, and the second to last move we'll be discussing, and I guess it's not really a move. Aaron Donald announcing his retirement. So Aaron Donald, just want to briefly talk about him. Surefire Hall of Famer. I mean, if you just look at his football reference page, it's like every possible award you can imagine. 10-time Pro Bowler, 8-time All-Pro, Super Bowl champion, Hall of Fame All-2010s team, 3-time AP Defensive Player of the Year, 2014 Defensive Rookie of the Year, 2-time PFWA Defensive Player of the Year, 2014 PFWA Defensive Rookie of the Year, and 2-time Sports SN Defensive Player of the Year. So he's done basically everything. I mean, it's funny. So on these on the stat head websites, when they show the awards on the right side, it's every column has something. Literally every year that he was in the league, he was a top defensive player in the league. He never had a season where he was not a Pro Bowl player. And I know the Pro Bowl is a little different now. Now it's fan voting. It's a little bit of a popularity contest, but he will go down as one of the single greatest defensive players of all time. Obviously, 2018 led the league in sacks and TFLs. Led the league in TFLs. as well in 2019. He was an all-pro every single season from 2015 all the way to 2021 when they won the Super Bowl. He was an all-pro every single year. He was an all-pro to end his career in his final season last year, taking the Rams to the playoffs. Obviously, they lose to the Lions, but it's like his worst quote-unquote seasons were his rookie year, where he had 9 sacks, he had 38 solo tackles, 18 TFLs, was a Pro Bowler, and won the Rookie of the Year. And then last year, 22, I should say, where he had, 5 sacks and 10 TFLs. But granted, he did that in just 11 games because he got hurt for most of the season. But 5 sacks in 11 games is not like terrible, right? That's like pretty good still. And like obviously still getting the Pro Bowl nod that year. He was unbelievable. He was always the scariest guy on the field. He basically won the Rams their Super Bowl in 2021 with that final play where he rushed Joe Burrow and brought him down, forced him to throw that incomplete pass on 4th down. And yeah, it's sad to see him go. But as a Lions fan, I'm happy that I won't have to face him in the NFC playoffs anymore because he was just unbelievable. I mean, even just looking at his playoff numbers, that Super Bowl win, 3.5 sacks in 4 games, 7, he had 6 solo tackles, 4 TFLs, it really is like, he really is just one of the greats. And, he didn't show up much against the Lions, but, he still was ultimately one of the great players of all time. So he will be missed. And I'm sure Rams fans specifically will enshrine him. And first ballot, he's going to be in the Hall of Fame. He's just too good, too good. And then finally, one of the weirder signings, because I just don't understand how this team exists. Chase Young signs with the Saints on a 1-year, $13 million deal after getting traded to the 49ers. Chase Young is turning into basically Jadeveon Clowney. Jadeveon Clowney, he was another guy who was super hyped coming out of the draft and big defensive guy in college, seemed like surefire, great player, but no, he just really hasn't lived up to it. And just a one-time Pro Bowler. He was the defensive rookie of the year. And since his rookie year, he just has not done anything. Like really. Like, he's either gotten hurt, and he's been hurt every single year except for this past season, although he did miss a game. And he wasn't even a starter for most of the games that he played last year. He didn't start a single game for San Francisco. And he only had the 2.5 sacks for him. He's never had double-digit sacks. He's still young. He's going to be 25 years old going into next year, but it just isn't working, clearly. I don't know if it's just a head case thing or if the injuries really just debilitated him, but it really sucks because he was one of the really good defensive prospects coming out of college, and Chase Young has just completely fallen off. To the point where, the Saints, I don't know what their plan is. And they always just make money up. You want proof that the salary cap doesn't matter, doesn't real? Look at the Saints. They're constantly in cap hell. And then they're like, how we get out of cap hell? We got to spend more because that's the only way, because the cap is going to go up, so then we won't be in cap hell. Science, things, stuff. I don't know if they just don't think that they're bad. Do they? The Saints haven't made the playoffs, I think, since 2020. I want to say that was the last time they made the playoffs, which was Drew Brees' last year. And they're still under this weird impression that they have Drew Brees, or so. I don't understand. I don't understand. I probably will never understand. But I just, they're doing things that I don't think it makes a whole lot of sense. And I think basically now that he has been signed by the Saints, that just solidifies it for me. Oh, okay. Nobody thinks this guy is good. He's not very good. He's going to a team where careers essentially go to die. Derek Carr's career went to die there. Jamal Williams' career went to die there. And now Chase Young's career is going to go die there. So his nickname apparently is Predator. Maybe if he is maybe he's like a predator to like playing well. Like he stopped. I don't know how that analogy works. But we're going to move along then. That's all the offsides. That's all the NFL offseason news to discuss. A lot of really interesting moves, a lot of eyebrow raising moves, but nothing that really changes the dynamic. And I think at this point, the offseason is probably going to just cool off. I don't really know that there's any major names left there that could be on the move. There's still technically L'Jarius Sneed is still out there, but from what I heard, doesn't seem like there's any movement there. Lions were in on him, and the Colts also were in on him, and then they weren't. But I don't know. Just things have been moving along. But one more thing on the NFL. This came out today. I just want to reference it because I think it's going to be pretty cool. And it is sort of Lions related. Netflix announces receiver docuseries. So obviously last year, everybody, well, maybe not everybody, but I think most people were aware of the quarterback documentary. We talked about it on this show very briefly. Following Marcus Mariota, Kirk Cousins, and Patrick Mahomes around in their season. And, you know, it was really entertaining, made by Omaha Productions, which is Peyton Manning's production company. And because they had so much success in the quarterback one, they decide they're going to do a spin-off series of that called Receiver, where they will follow five, according to Bleacher Report here, they will follow five of the NFL's top pass catchers from the 2023 season. Those receivers are Devontae Adams of the Las Vegas Raiders, Justin Jefferson of the Minnesota Vikings, George Kittle of the San Francisco 49ers, Deebo Samuel of the San Francisco 49ers, and Amon-Ra St. Brown of the Detroit Lions. So obviously as a Lions fan, I'm super happy to see that because Amon-Ra is a pro. I mean, he's one of the best receivers in the league, and I'm glad to see that we're going to get a little deeper dive into him. We got a little bit of it in Hard Knocks a couple of years ago, but now he's basically established himself. Obviously, he had the All-Pro season last year. You know, one of the top receivers in the league, in my opinion. So we're going to get a lot more of him, and hopefully get more of his dad, because if you watch Hard Knocks, his dad's great. His dad's a national treasure. But I'm also interested in seeing George Kittle because he's an interesting guy. It's weird because he's the only tight end in the lineup here. I'm not sure why he's on there. Like, I would assume if they were going to do another series, they would do tight end or running back, and maybe receiver is going to include tight ends, I guess. So George Kittle and Deebo Samuel, I'm sure. I wonder if it's going to be like they're paired, like they're getting interviewed at the same time kind of deal, or I don't know. But either way, you also, like, what I really like about the selection is you have players that are going to be in very different situations. It was similar to last year with quarterback, where you had, you know, Marcus Mariota, who was on a terrible team, right? Like a terrible team, you know, was kind of a backup. Eventually he gets benched by the end of the year, and then, you know, he kind of goes away. And then at the end, you see that he goes to the Philadelphia Eagles. And then you had Kirk Cousins, who is this kind of dorky but lovable weirdo kind of guy on a really good Vikings team with a new head coach. You know, they win their division. It's a fun team to be around, and all that. And then you have Patrick Mahomes, who obviously goes on to win the Super Bowl. And in this case, you don't have the Super Bowl winner, but you do have two of the Super Bowl losers. So that's going to be some interesting drama that they'll do with Deebo Samuel and George Kittle. But you'll also have Devontae Adams, who's going to be in a situation where his coach gets fired in the middle of the season. Right? That's going to be some interesting. I'm very curious to see what kind of stories Devontae Adams will be able to tell or show, like where they go with that. And then on the other end, you have Justin Jefferson, who was dealing with basically every week it's a new quarterback, with Kirk Cousins going down, and then Josh Dobbs coming in, and then Nick Mullins coming in, and, you know, like, I think that's going to be interesting from a receiver's perspective, what that's like, and, you know, how he felt about that situation. And he's also with a coach who was on the show last time, so, you know, I'm sure he'll make another appearance. And then Amon-Ra St. Brown, I think he is going to be a very interesting. We're probably going to see more Dan Campbell, probably going to see more Ben Johnson, you know, and having that whole, you know, division title, playoff run, NFC championship game. I don't know how they do this, if they just like make a kind of calculation about which teams they think are going to do well to where they could make a series that like is able to follow at least one player all the way to the end of the show. Or if maybe they're following a bunch of guys and then they decide on the guys by the end of the season based on, where they end up and stuff like that. But either way, I think this is going to be really good. I really like the quarterback show. And I'm looking forward to seeing Amon-Ra specifically. So with that, I want to move on. What should we move on to? I guess we'll real quick talk about this baseball news, and then we'll get into March Madness to wrap up the show. So, first things first, a couple of big news stories in the MLB. And I'll really briefly talk about these, but Garrett Cole, out 1 to 2 months with an elbow injury. He will see a surgeon. So, the downfall of the Yankees is already beginning. Garrett Cole, obviously one of the best pitchers in the league, and he gets hurt again. No, he didn't get hurt last year. I feel like he's gotten hurt at some point, probably at some point. But he gets hurt. He's going to be out for 1 to 2 months, so he'll miss maybe the first month or two of the season. And we'll see if he ends up okay afterwards. We'll see where the Yankees end up because, I mean, obviously their season last year was derailed by injuries to Aaron Judge and, them just absolutely hating Giancarlo Stanton. Yankees fans are interesting. Like, how was Giancarlo Stanton even that bad? Hold on. How bad was Giancarlo Stanton? I feel like he wasn't even that bad. Like, there's no way. Right? Where's baseball reference? Did I pass it? I did. There's no way he was that bad. Okay, he was really bad. Never mind. All right. I did not pay attention to Yankees baseball. I didn't think he batted 191. Good. I mean, he still had 24 home runs. Jeez. Yeah, that's not great. Well, that sucks. That's too bad. But yeah, Garrett Cole goes down. Probably not going to have a major impact on where the Yankees end up, assuming that the surgery goes well and, that he's not like completely not himself post-surgery. But you never know. So, unfortunate news for Yankees fans. And speaking of unfortunate news for Yankees fans, Dylan Cease, who is not a Yankees pitcher, but I think a lot of Yankees fans would have liked to have him, he gets traded to the Padres. And again, I wish Seth was here, obviously our local Padres fan. What is the mindset? Like, I feel similar to the Padres that I do about the Steelers, where I'm just like, okay, you're like kind of buying, but you're also kind of selling, and like, things like what you're going to get Dylan Cease, who like he's like pretty good, I guess. Like, he's not, amazing. He's not like a Cy Young. He's never won the Cy Young or anything. Last year he had a 4.58 ERA. He wasn't doing anything that spectacular, but he's had really good seasons. Just a couple of years ago, he was one of the best pitchers in the American League. I mean, decent, 11 strikeouts per 9 innings. I'm looking here, an 11.10.09 WHIP, a 3.10 FIP, a 1.80 ERA plus. Like, he was pretty good for like a stretch there. And I mean, maybe they figure he's entering into his prime. He's going to be 28 next season. Like, they might be able to get something out of him. But okay. I mean, I'm not going to be like, I'm not going to be like, this is like the worst, stupidest move that the Padres have ever made, because they've made many stupid moves relatively recently, actually. But I guess I feel like for the Cubs, for the White Sox, they get a bit of a steal in a sense, I guess, depending on whether or not any of these prospects work out. They land one Drew Thorpe, Samuel Zavala, and where's the last guy? Jairo I is his name, and Steven Wilson. So Drew Thorpe was the Padres' number 5 prospect, Samuel Zavala number 7, Jairo I number 8. So they get 3 of their top 10 prospects in their system. Now, one of them was, or 2 of them are pitchers. Samuel Zavala is an outfielder. In my mind, I always want to get bats. Bats are worth more to me than pitching. Now, you always need pitching, but I'm an offense guy. I like having more bats. I like having guys that can hit home runs and drive in the baseball. That's what I like. But you get a pretty decent return for Dylan Cease if you're the White Sox. Now the White Sox are not going to be good this year. Clearly, they're not planning on being good because they're trading away probably their best pitcher. So not going to be great for the South Side, but hey, I'm okay with that. Hope the White Sox lose every game. 162. That's what I would like, but probably not going to happen. But anyway, moving on from that, we got to talk about March Madness because it is that time of the year when everybody loses their mind. And by everyone, I mean the college basketball world where players decide, you know what? I don't want to play basketball. And they just lose to, the little sisters of the blind, poor, and bad at things. I love this time of year because it's just stupid. It's just you literally, I try to find a group of people that just don't know anything about basketball and just hey, let's do a bracket. And I will inevitably lose. Last time I did a bracket with a bunch of friends of mine, I was the only one who actively followed college basketball. I think actually one other person followed college basketball in that group. I came in dead last. Person who won probably had never watched a college basketball game in their life. And so we sit here with the tournament of all tournaments. It's one of, if not the best postseason playoff things in all of sports to me, where it's just 68 or 64 teams, and basically anybody can win. It's one game elimination, so you make what you can with it. Now, I do have a few things that I want to talk about here. Obviously, MSU fan, got to talk about MSU. They're playing the other MSU, Mississippi State. So Michigan State versus Mississippi State, 8 and 9 seed. Michigan State ends up as the 9 seed. I was saying all year they'll probably make the tournament. I don't know how. They just will. So they make the tournament. They're a 9 seed, so they are going to be playing for the right to lose to North Carolina. So that's going to be a lot of fun. I'm sure everybody is going to enjoy that. But yeah, so super great stuff. Great another season, another well done season. Tom Izzo and MSU were really raising the bar. I heard somebody today, I think it was Tim Brando, say that MSU was going to go to the Sweet 16. And I'm like, excuse me. You are aware we have to beat North Carolina to get to the Sweet 16. I guess not necessarily. North Carolina could lose. But we have to beat Mississippi State, which is not going to be easy. I mean, they're probably evenly matched with us. And we also would have to beat North Carolina. I don't know about you. I don't have a whole lot of hope in that. I don't have a whole lot of faith in that. But I wanted to make another, imagine the Steelers getting Justin Jefferson. I would just, at that point, Bussy, you know what I would do? I would retire. I would just say, you know what? I enjoy doing this. This is a fun hobby of mine, but you know what? Can't do it. But anyway, back to March Madness. I have a couple of teams that I think are going to be early exits and a couple of teams I think are going to be kind of sneaky. Now, I will say, I am not a college basketball savant. I do not follow all of college basketball. I follow primarily Michigan State and a little bit of Big Ten and pick up on stuff from other people. But that's where I'm coming from. All right. So if I name some team and I'm a total stupid idiot and I should have picked better, I don't know. Watch somebody else's video, I guess. You already clicked on this one, so I get the view. I don't know if you know how this works. I get the view no matter if you like the video or not. Anyway, this is being contemptuous of the people who watch your videos is a good strategy. So for the early exits, actually, let's do the sneaky teams. All right, I'm gonna go with Northwestern. All right, Northwestern has one player on their team who's been the absolute bane to Michigan State's existence, and to my existence personally. That is one Boo Buie. This is his real name, by the way. His real name is in fact Boo Buie. I think I looked this up. Now I'm double checking. Boo Buie. Actually, no. His real name is Daniel. But everybody calls him Boo. I don't know why, but they call him Boo Booey. He is a killer of all things good and beautiful. Northwestern is a 9 seed as well. They will play FAU, who made the Final Four last year. Everybody remembers that crazy year. And they're in the same bracket as UConn. Now, I don't think they're going to be like if they beat UConn, then at that point you're like, okay, it's anybody. Like they really could go on a run. But Boo Booey, just remember the name, because that man, he's like my kryptonite. It's like when I see him, I just weaken and I shrivel into a ball of sadness and despair and anger. That's what happens. So look out for Boo Booey. And the other team I want to point out is James Madison. So look, James Madison, despite being just one guy, is actually a pretty good team. James Madison, they obviously beat Michigan State to begin the year. So I've seen this team when they're good. And I guess, like, in my mind, they're up against Wisconsin. And I don't know that I really trust Wisconsin all that much. They did lose to U of M on the road, which is funny given the fact that Michigan was actually worse at home than they were on the road. But it did happen. So that's just what it is. But I don't know. There's just like, I just feel weird about James Madison. I just feel like they're like going to sneak up on some teams. They're going to go farther than they actually deserve to go. So yeah, let me have this. All right. Again, I told you, I'm not a college basketball savant. I don't really have a whole lot of reading. I couldn't tell you who's on James Madison's team. Benjamin Franklin, is he on their team? George Washington, I think he's on James. No, wait, actually, that's a different university. Jay Johnson, anybody? Isn't that anybody? No. Okay. Thomas Jefferson? No. Okay. I'm just naming the founding fathers. But anyway, the other teams that I might be able to give a little bit more insight to, but I doubt it. Early exits. Give me Illinois. All right, Illinois. For one, they lost to MSU, which is already it's an immediate scab against them. I think they almost got swept MSU. I don't remember how MSU played them the first time on the road. I know we lost the game, but I don't know. Something about Illinois that doesn't sit right. All right, it just doesn't sit right. I know they won the Big Ten tournament, but I don't like them. I don't know. I can't really explain it. It's like ever since they lost Kofi Cockburn, which is one of the most unfortunate names in all of college basketball history. I don't know. It's just like they kind of exist and then they just lose a game that they absolutely should win. So yeah, I don't really trust them. They're in a decently favorable bracket though, just looking at the teams around them. With BYU, Iowa State, Washington State. They got to play Morehead State to start the tournament. But yeah, I guess in my mind, I don't know. I just don't really trust them. They losing to Michigan State to me is like an immediate like sense of like, ooh, I don't trust you. Like you should be able to beat Michigan State. Most teams should be able to beat Michigan State. And I say that as a Michigan State fan. So when you lose to us, it just makes me be like, oh, okay. So you can't be that good. like there's something wrong with you as a team. And the other team, and this team, I have great displeasure. Or I have great pleasure, I should say, not displeasure. The opposite of displeasure. I have great pleasure in rooting against, except when it's in favor of my bracket. Then I'll root for them. Purdue, number 1 seed. We all remember what happened last year, losing to a 16 seed, the second time that has happened ever. Only Big Ten team to ever have that happen. Purdue, with their alien from outer space, from planet, where was the Tatooine? He's from Tatooine. Zach Edey, whose athleticism is that of a pine wood. Zach Edey is like, yes. Is he good? Yes. But he's also like 10 feet taller than everybody. You know what? Like it's like if I'd probably be the best player in like JV junior high basketball. Well, actually, I don't know. I'm not that tall. Some of those kids might be taller. All right. Maybe like we'll go like even lower. Like if we had like a 10-year-old basketball league I would be like I'd be Michael Jordan, okay? I'd be Shaquille O'Neal, Hakeem Olajuwon, Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, LeBron James. I'd be all of them combined. I would destroy them. And I feel like that's what Zach Edey is. It's like, what does he do? He drives into, he posts up under the basket. He does a little hook shot. He draws a foul. He gets he draws like 100 fouls a game. He basically fouls a team out to the point where now they're just shooting free throws. And he blocks every single shot that's in front of him because he's got he's basically Mr. Fantastic, right? Like, I understand why, like, he's a good college player, but let's not get it confused. He's not athletic. He can't shoot from three. He can't do it. He is only going to be good in college. And I just don't trust Purdue. I don't. They had Zach Edey and Jaden Ivey, who actually is an NBA caliber player, in Jaden Ivey. And they didn't go anywhere in the tournament. They did nothing. They did absolutely nothing. So until or unless they do something in the tournament, I got no faith in Purdue. And frankly, I would enjoy to watch them lose. I don't know who they would play because they play a play-in team. I don't know which one of these groups that they would play. But I hope they lose. I hope if it's Grambling or Montana State or Howard or Wagner, I don't know which one they play. I hope they lose. And I hope they lose by like 1,000. Like, it would bring me nothing but great joy and to watch Purdue and Zach Edey just get bodied in the first round. Maybe not the first round. I want them to win because I need to win for my bracket. But losing like the second round, that's fine. Oh, and also I want to put Kansas. I didn't put them down, but Kansas, they're dealing with some injuries. Hunter Dickinson, he had his shoulder dislocated, I think. I think they popped it back in, which is always a great sign. So yeah, I don't know. I don't feel that confident in Kansas. I think they could be early exits, and Kansas does this a lot historically. It was kind of funny, like when they won a couple of years ago. It was like, now you want to win. Like, now you want to do it. Every other year when somebody takes Kansas, it's like there's just some teams, and my brother and I will talk about this ad nauseum because we used to love doing March Madness brackets, and we still kind of do. But like, it's like there's just a few teams where you can't take them. If you're making a bracket, you can't do it because they're gonna just hurt you. And one of those teams is Kansas, and a few of the others. I mean, like Gonzaga, you just can't do it. They're never gonna win. They always disappoint. Purdue is another one of those teams. Can't do it. Doesn't matter how good they are. They're not gonna do it. I want to say those are at least a few off the top of my head. There's probably way more, and we could probably if he was here, we'd probably be able to list a bunch. But needless to say, March Madness is here. It's a fun time. I would encourage, if you're not into college basketball, just make a bracket because it makes it a whole lot more fun. Like, I'm not that into college basketball, but once the tournament comes on, I'm paying a lot more attention. I'm focusing on games. I'm looking at box scores. I'm doing the fun stuff. Like, it's fun. Get your family, get your friends, get your teachers, get your coworkers, get the milkman, get the vacuum cleaner man, get the I don't know, what other garbage man, get them all involved. It's fun. I think it's a lot of fun. So yeah, March Madness, very cool. Big fan. Very on the issue of March Madness, I'm pro. But that is where we're going to wrap up the show. So we covered a lot of off-season stuff, March Madness stuff, fun, a lot of fun stuff, but should be interesting. Next week, we're going to have a little bit more March Madness stuff. Obviously, we'll be done with the first weekend of the tournament. We'll see if MSU has survived for what would be the second season in a row, I guess. But haven't made the Final Four since I was a freshman in college, so that's fun. But with that, we're going to wrap up the show. Go ahead and hit the like button, hit the subscribe button if you enjoyed. We will be back again next Tuesday. We're getting closer to opening day. I think next week we're going to do like a breakdown of, opening day essentially, because next week will be the final week of regular season or spring training baseball. So we'll have some more baseball stuff to talk about. Baseball's starting up, man. Isn't it crazy? Baseball's starting. Looking forward to it. Having a lot of fun. But with that, we're going to wrap up the show again. Hit the subscribe, hit the like button. Leave a comment. We'll try to talk. If everything we talk about, leave a comment. Talk about it. We'll have a conversation. But Again, have a great night, everybody. I'll see you all next week for all the sporting news of the week. See you later. Goodbye. Goodbye.